afternoon to everybody who is joining today. Welcome to today's session. As you're joining us, please use the chat box and just share with us who you are, where you're joining from, your job title, and also one thing you've been doing towards inclusive health and well-being. We'd be delighted to hear what you've been doing about that, or simply your understanding of inclusive health and well-being. Thank you. I was speaking with Zoe earlier saying I've forgotten the number of count of these sessions. We are probably on the 24th or the 25th session, Zoe?
Something like that. Yeah, I've lost count. I've lost count. And we've got Nikki joining us today, and we've got Alan as well. So love the flower, Nikki.
Yeah.
Are you able to unmute, Nikki?
I think I am unmuted. Yeah. Thank you very much. Looking forward to it. It's always nice to join these. And I was thinking as well, while people are joining, my reflections on these sessions is that it's been quite disciplined to have been part of these, because I think it's actually really helped my personal health and well-being. You know, it's made me take a lot more notice, and I think as a result of being part of this as part of my role has actually had a very positive impact on me. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Nikki, for sharing that. More people are joining us. Welcome. As you're joining us, I'd just like to encourage you to use the chat box and share with us your name, your job title, and where you're joining from this afternoon. I'm joining from North Kent. It's actually beautiful today. The sun is out, so a really, really good afternoon. That's improving my health and well-being, just seeing great weather out there.
Oh, it definitely is, isn't it? The sun. And where I live at the moment, we live in the countryside, and you might hear my dog barking a bit later because we now get the cows. The cows walk up and down the lane, and I just love watching them. But we've got a new puppy, and the cows went down for the first time today, and he barked his head off. So I've got a feeling about 4:30 that he might be barking, unfortunately, but we'll see. But it is nice to see animals and just to get out, isn't it?
It's beautiful weather.
I don't know whether Lee is able to unmute, but I don't know whether, Lee, are you able to unmute? I was just wondering whether have I caught you mid-mouthful? So
yeah,
you're joining
you timed it well.
If you're joining early, Lee is part of the Horizons team and works on the School for Change Agents with a number of other colleagues. And I can see that Max has popped in the chat room that he's been doing the S4C programme. Do you want to say a little bit more about the School for Change Agents while we start?
Hi Zoe, thank you, and hello everybody who's joined. Hello, my name is Lee Kendall. I'm from the Horizons team, and as Zoe said in a kind of introduction, I am part of the team that helps lead the School for Change Agents. So it is an online learning community. We host it on a platform called FutureLearn, and the beauty of that is you can sign up and go at your own pace. So there's 5 sessions, and it's designed in bite-sized chunks with short videos, articles, and audio, so you can do as much or as little each time as you like. So you've only got 10 minutes to spare. That's absolutely fine. You can just pop on, do some learning, and then get back to whatever else you need to do. And there is a brilliant, really energized global community on there as well. So people from all over the world, as well as our lovely NHS, reflecting on the learning and how they might put that learning into action in the real world. So please do sign up. I'll pop the link in the chat box, but it's horizonsnhs.com/school. And so, do sign up. Brilliant online learning community. We've got some live webinar sessions coming up next week with Helen Bevan and Catherine Pereira. So don't miss those. And we look forward to welcoming you to school if you aren't already there. Thanks.
Thanks, Lee. Thanks for sharing that of the comments from Max in the chat room. So please do continue to use the chat room throughout the session and interact with the contents and what you're doing as well. So lots of ways to stay in touch throughout these sessions, and there's a few here on the screen. But as it's 4 o'clock, I'm going to get us started. So, but while I am, please do say hello in the chat box. Say who you are, where you are. And you might want to say something about today's topic, maybe what inclusivity means to you. So welcome to this session. I'm just going to ask if everybody can mute on the line. And these sessions are run by the NHS England and NHS Improvement Wellbeing team. We run these sessions monthly, and today we're focusing on creating a culture of inclusive health and wellbeing, a very important topic. Many of you have joined these sessions before, so you'll know that the aims of the sessions are to offer support, ideas, knowledge and wisdom for those in a role supporting the health and well-being of our very important staff. We want to share a lot of wellbeing resources, and we'll be doing that throughout the session, and hopefully you can continue to connect within the chat room as well, and I can see a lot of chats going on now. We've got a fabulous session. So we've got my colleague Wazir, who's going to be giving an overview of the National Wellbeing Programme within NHS England and Improvement, and he's going to be talking a little bit about his programme that he leads with the team about inclusive health and wellbeing. We've got my colleague Nikki Squelch, and Nikki's going to be talking about Project M. So M is always about support for managers and leaders within our organisations. Delighted to have the Reverend Dr. Guy Harrison with us, who's going to be talking about spiritual health and wellbeing. And then we've got Mark Appleby with us, and Mark's going to be talking about their programme at Yeovil, the whole staff recovery plan, and we're going to be focusing some of that on inclusion as well. Hopefully we'll have lots of time for chat, so please keep your questions coming in through the chat box, and then Elizabeth and myself will close with some closing remarks. Before we move on to this, I'd love to introduce John Drew. Hopefully, John, you can unmute if okay. John's the Director of Staff Experience and Engagement here at NHS England. John, would you like to welcome and open the session?
Sure, thanks Zoe, and thanks Elizabeth. Zoe was telling me recently that this series of webinars has now reached over 100,000 people in one form or another, which I think you would agree is pretty amazing. So you're part of a big and growing community, which I think is fantastic. Just in terms of today's topic on inclusive health and well-being, I guess the things that I would say about this are that as well as the pandemic having put a big focus for us on health and well-being, I think it's also taught us a lot about what it really means and the fact that it looks different for different people. And for you to really feel supported, it often matters who that support's coming from and the level of trust that you have in that person. And I think we've found also through the vaccination programme that people will be influenced by people from their own faith community, their own social environment, their own profession. You know, there's lots of things that influence us. And I think therefore it's important that for me, the inclusion part of health and wellbeing means two things. One, it means a really broad definition of what health and wellbeing means. It's not just about being well enough to come to work. It's about feeling able to be yourself at work and feeling able to fully contribute. And lots of things can get in the way of that, but also lots of things can help that. And then secondly, I think it's about us working really hard to make sure that we're finding people that don't feel included. And the staff survey is a great resource to see that there are still some very striking gaps. Often it is for different racial groups, but not always. It can be people's sexual orientation. About half the people that complete the staff survey also report a religious faith. And that is another element, as I said, that's come to the fore during the pandemic. So I think you're going to hear today from some examples, including my colleague Wazir, who I want to pay tribute to, who's done a great job of raising the profile of this whole area within the national team to make sure that we're tailoring offers to groups of people that might otherwise not feel included, to make sure they're relevant and they're accessible. So you'll hear some great examples, and I hope that it will inspire you to do those two things really, have a very broad definition of what health and wellbeing means, and also be committed to going after groups of staff and colleagues that may not feel included, to understand what more we can do to make sure that they feel supported at work in all aspects, to make sure they can fully contribute, including ultimately to the care of patients. Thanks, Zoe.
Thanks, John, for opening our session today. I'm just going to share the slides again and let you know who is helping us. So we've got all of our speakers today. We've got Paul, who's our technical host. So if you're having any problems, please contact Paul via the chat. We're live streaming on YouTube as well. So Ian is your host there if you're with us on YouTube. And we've got Neil and Lee on social media. So if you are on Twitter or Instagram, then please do tag us with Caring for NHS People and Project M, and the conversation will continue on that after our session today as well.
Thank you, Zoe. Thank you, John, as well. So to kick us off today, we are going to hear from Wazir Mohammed. Wazir is Senior Program Lead, Health and Wellbeing Team in the People Directorate, and he's going to give us an overview of the Wellbeing and Inclusive Health and Wellbeing agenda. Over to you, Wazir, and welcome.
I can't hear you just at the moment, Wazir. No. Paul, are you able to help us? Maybe, Wazir, if you're able to disconnect your headset, that might help.
Wazir is unmuted on the system, so it's a local sound issue. I'll message him in the chat.
Thank you, Paul.
Okay, so as Wazir is just sorting out the local issues, I'm just going to share with you the Health and Wellbeing Programme. So unless you do, John, I can cover this. I'll cover this, yeah.
Go ahead, Zoe.
Yeah, so I think Wazir at this point wanted to cover the breadth and depth of what happens within the NHS England and Improvement Wellbeing Programme, with the support of the regions and local systems as well. So as you all, I hope you all know, is we have Health and Wellbeing Guardians, and this is they're supported in their role and champion health and wellbeing within organisations. We've got wellbeing conversations. Now, we have spoken about wellbeing conversations on one of these sessions previously, and there's a whole package that comes with that, and that can be found on the NHS England and Improvement website. Wazir, do you want to just keep jumping in if you can, and we'll you can take over from me when.
Hi, Zoe.
Hey,
can you hear me?
We can hear you. Okay.
Sorry, I was
You're all right. It was working okay in our prep, so over to you. See how well I did.
I was sitting too far away from to the internet now.
So Wazir, you're just in a little bit in and out of your audio again.
Yes.
Okay, let's go with it.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So thanks, John. I'm going to introduction. I'm from the Health and Wellbeing team, and we exist to support.
Yeah, sorry. The audio is just a little bit too crackly for us to hear you properly. But we can come back to you and your programme in just a moment. So what I'm going to do, because this is really important to have the overview, and I really want to share with everybody the work that you're doing. So I'm going to whiz over to Nikki Squelch, and then we're going to come back to you, Wazir, if that's okay. And Paul will be able to help you in the background with regard to your audio, so we can get it working really nice and smoothly. So Nikki, do you want to tell us a little bit about Project M? And you're on mute as well, Nikki.
And I did it. I'm so sorry. I thought I'm all organised. So I do apologise. Hopefully you can hear me well. I'm going to be honest with you. There's been a couple of times when my screen has frozen as well. So fingers crossed you can hear me. It's good to have Elizabeth nodding. That means we've made contact. So let me tell you about Project M. Project M was a response to the COVID-19 pandemic, winter pressures, and the evolving vaccination program back in its launch in November last year. It was in real recognition that the managers and the team leaders could really use a helping hand in managing themselves and their teams during the continuous challenging times. We've tested and learnt along the way, and we've had an ethos that the managers, they already have a toolbox, a personal toolbox of resources, and our role was really to remind them that through little interventions and reminders that they could access all of their tools and perhaps even learn some more tools and even how to repurpose their tools as they go through their day-to-day activities during these pressured times. As a project has evolved, we have a focus, like many of us, on recovery and inclusion, and Project M will continue to evolve and respond to the emergent needs around this, around the health and well-being of our managers and team leaders. Our approach and our principles remain the same, that we engage, we listen and respond to the emerging needs of what we're hearing back from our managers and team leaders, and what recovery and reset might mean to them, and how we can support them through providing bite-sized resource or connecting them with others so that they can make sure that all of our people are feeling included. And all of this, of course, speaks to our people plan on caring for our people. If you've joined these webinars before, you would have heard Alan Nobbs beautifully articulate what we do and how we do it, how we've linked the Project M community's passion to be compassionate and inclusive leaders, and how we've sought inspirational clips that help raise awareness and thoughtfulness into this space. The example on this slide is John Amici, who does a short piece on privilege in a way that helps us, the audience, understand what it really means, what it means for us, what it means for the people that we work with, and what we can do to be alert to and to change and reflect our approaches. Much of the Project M delivery happens in the space of social media, specifically Twitter and LinkedIn. And this is because it's quick and accessible and it's easy to follow. So, we'd welcome you to follow our hashtags to learn more about us, or just follow the NHS Leadership Academy account. So the sort of space that we operate is we try to keep relevant and meaningful to the Project M community. So, for example, with being Mental Health Awareness Week, along with Human Rights and Equality Week, we're making sure that we're sharing posts and information and resources that help people be reminded of those as well. We've also heard that keeping connected with others in similar roles and having safe spaces to talk, share ideas and learn from managers and team leaders from across the whole system was really important. And it's been great to see people really connect from, the southwest, southeast, all the way up to, we've even had people involved from Northern Ireland. So we're going to continue to evolve as a project, but there is a bit of a pattern of offering which we're going to kind of work towards as we're going through that. And before I say to the next slide, just to give you a bit of a picture of our reach, to date the resources have been accessed by about our resources have been accessed 27,000 times by 14,000 users. And our most popular post last week was around a focus on well-being and looking at burnout and what we could do to prevent burnout. So hopefully quite relevant and topical. Could I have the next slide, please? So this is really about what we do, so that pattern that I've just mentioned. You can see we've got upcoming events that have two other additional ways to help people connect, share and learn together. On how to be compassionate and inclusive leaders. So last month, the Tea and Talk time ended up being a share of further kind of video clips of inspiration and sharing ideas on books that have helped those individuals which others might be interested in. And there's a real focus on self-care and team care. These informal virtual spaces have absolutely no agenda other than it is really for people to come together in a safe environment to connect, share and learn. Involving managers and providing a forum for discussion. Our Listen and Learn event in March was just, I loved it. It was incredibly insightful and spoke to a bit today to, I think, today's current topic on what belonging means to different people and our role as team leaders and managers in building belonging in our teams. It really served as a powerful reminder that some of us across NHS and across health and care don't always feel like we belong. And there was people sharing their stories, also really practical ideas and resources of how we could be aware of this and how we can empower and enable others to develop that sense of belonging. Our next one is on the 27th, and it focuses on recovery in a direct response to a theme that came out of our April tweet chat. And that is that people really need time to reflect as individuals and teams. And that really was found, what in my belief is foundational to recovery. So we're really keen to keep the managers' voices true and real in that space. So if you have a story about how you as a manager or a team leader have helped yourself or helped others move through a difficult time and are starting to recover and reset, we'd love to hear those stories being shared in that space. So if you feel brave enough and ready enough, then please contact me in the chat box, and so we can reach out and start having those conversations about how you can be involved on the 27th. Our last session was on building trust in teams, and there were some real great ideas. So I really do encourage people to get involved. We also try to film them, edit them and then share them so that people can watch them in their time. So keep an eye on the Project M web page as well, because that's where they're coming soon. To date, we haven't reached the same number of you because we just haven't got that far, but we've got about 500 people who have joined us cumulatively in that virtual space. And on the Twitter land, it's been about 12,000 people tweeting and sharing their stories in that Project M space. So the last slide, if I may, really is a final bit of a call to action. This is again part of our very much our test, learn, evolve approach. And we have around 200 people who've engaged in our mentorship approach, which has really been light touch, using what's called a Twibbon on the Twitter land, and how people are reaching out to support each other in that space. This week we're going to start sharing a survey about what that experience has been like, and we really encourage people to participate in that so that we can continually learn and evolve our offer. So the important thing, I guess the message is, please get connected, please get included, and hopefully it will help you stay well with others.
Thank you very much, Nikki, for that excellent overview. I personally love those Project M Twitter chats. I always jump onto them. And it's really, really good to hear how many people have benefited from these chats and from that connection. Really, really useful. From my personal point of view, I always feel so supported each time after those Twitter chats. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Elizabeth. I too find them really energizing. So let's keep going. The next one, the 1st of June, hopefully people saw that. So see you there.
I'll be there. Thank you, Nikki. We have Wazia with us now, and I'm going to introduce Wazia again, Wazia Muhammad, who is a Senior Program Lead at Health for Health and Wellbeing in the People Directorate team, who will give us an overview on the well-being and inclusive health and well-being. Welcome, Wazia. Good to have you back. Go for it.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Can you hear me? Just nod.
Perfectly. Thank
That's
you.
great. Thank you. Can we go to the first slide?
Thank you.
Thank you. So before I talk about the inclusive health and well-being, I thought it would be really good to give you a bit of context. So I'm part of the health and well-being team, and we exist to support the health and well-being of our staff through developing and implementing strategies, supporting from line managers to individual staff members in terms of their health and well-being. So there are some key major national initiatives. If you've been attending these webinars, I hope you'll be well versed into some of those. So Health and Wellbeing Guardians, a key initiative for us, where we will have senior level, known as executive level people acting as champions for health and wellbeing at board level in NHS organisations, and also acting as critical friends to support the health and wellbeing of our staff. Similarly, wellbeing conversations, another key initiative for us to make sure that the wellbeing conversations, regular and conversations take place between the line managers and the team members, and also between the colleagues. Another key initiative, and there are some really good inclusive wellbeing conversations, some models emerging in some parts of the country, which are quite interesting. We're also working with a number of integrated care systems, ICSs, through regional teams. We call them enhanced health and wellbeing pilots, where we are making sure and working with the system to ensure that occupational health is not just a reactive intervention, but it's a proactive and preventative approach, supporting our staff's health and well-being. And then we have staff mental health and well-being hubs, another key initiative through which NHS staff could access evidence-based mental health support and well-being support in quite timely manner to support the health and well-being. So this is just kind of a very high-level overview for mainstream health and well-being. If you go to the next slide, please. So in response to COVID, we then developed a number of interventions, some of them very COVID specific, some of them are more generic to health and well-being. For example, our telephone helplines in partnership with Samaritans, Hospice UK, our Shout Tech service. These were developed in the backdrop of COVID-19. Extremely popular telephone helplines. Similarly, on our website, we've published a number of health and wellbeing guides and webinars. We have a number of apps to support our staff. Again, the backdrop was COVID-19. And then the list just goes on. So this is kind of our high-level national health and wellbeing interventions for our staff. Going to the next slide, please. So this is very well documented fact. So I didn't want to share too much data, but we all know, it's very well known that the ethnic minority communities have been affected the most at so many different levels in COVID-19. And again, when you say ethnic minority or BAME or BME, it's a hugely diverse community we're talking about. And within that, the two communities were hit the hardest. Black African Caribbean communities in the first wave, and then in wave two, South Asian communities, mainly Pakistani, Indian, and Bangladeshi communities. And linking to the wider health inequalities, and known fact, but for a very simple and basic reason that ethnic minority staff from these communities were in very high level jobs, both in the health sector and also in other professions. One of the key ones, alongside a number of other factors. So based on that evidence and learning from that evidence, then in the National Health and Wellbeing Program team, we started to look at what is it we could do nationally to support the health and well-being of our staff from ethnic minority backgrounds. Hence, a whole host of different intervention support offers we then started launching If you go to the next slide, please. So we've started with a number of programs, as I said, in line with COVID, and by supporting our ethnic minority colleagues, we are just basically scratching the surface at this stage. COVID, of course, through vaccination, rates will go down, but the impact will remain and the scars will remain for a very long time for certain communities and for staff members. So we are expanding to other parts of, alongside ethnicity, to other parts of equality, diversity, inclusion. So some of the programs we currently have, Looking After You Too is one of the major and hugely successful program. This is where our NHS staff could basically book a session, in fact, up to 4 sessions with a trained coach, and they could talk to them on a one-to-one basis on a whole host of different issues. We launched this program at the back end of January, I think first week of February, and so far we had over 800 sessions delivered to staff from ethnic minority backgrounds, and all the coaches are from ethnic minority backgrounds as well. Hugely popular program, extremely useful feedback. So we regularly connect with the people who are coaches who are delivering the program, and also collecting data and feedback from people who have been through this program. Highly recommended for people from ethnic minority, and we are looking at how we could expand that to people with disabilities, sexual orientation, and based on what evidence data we have. Second, learning from our helplines, where people found support, really useful support by talking to a trained counselor and counseling services. So we have some faith-based counseling support offer for staff from Muslim background, staff from Christian background, and also from Association of Christian Counseling for staff from no faith backgrounds. Again, it's a small capacity but hugely popular service, extremely useful information data coming back from this. Also, we delivered mental health first aid training. This is mental health awareness training. And the key intention was that we support our staff to understand their own mental health and well-being, especially if they're going through a really tough time, their family, they have been affected by the pandemic. And so know their own mental health and well-being, the triggers, some high-level understanding of symptoms, and also be able to support their other colleagues, peers, and teams. Over 100 people from ethnic minority backgrounds have been trained, and we are going to be working with them how their knowledge and learning could be shared across the organization. We started working with the regions and the systems, where we are supporting systems to actually, of course, we are running some national programs, but you can only do so much nationally. And we are supporting our systems, how they could understand better and more about their staff groups, what kind of health and well-being support they need, what works for them slightly more locally. Again, when I say local, I'm very careful. ICS, or integrated care system, is still a huge geographic area. So that program is in development, and there'll be some really good learning there. Then we have psychospiritual support, which obviously I will leave for Guy to talk about. And also we have just started to, as I said at the beginning, learning from starting with ethnicity, race, and faith. We're expanding the scope. So the next key target group is people with disabilities, also people with sexual orientation and gender specific. What our intention is in the National Health and Wellbeing team is not just to go across the board all EDI protected groups and all the health inequalities related groups, but it's evidence driven, trying to understand what the data is telling us, what is the evidence, what are the staff groups we need to support nationally, and also how we could work more effectively with the regions and the systems, and even with the trusts, for them to then support their staff. So I'll stop there. And on the next slide, Elizabeth, there's some numbers in terms of hugely popular services, from helplines to our webinars to our coaching sessions. So this is just some background data in terms of numbers. We also collect qualitative feedback and data through a number of sources, which obviously guides us and helps us to understand how effective our services are and what we need to do next. Thank you very much. I'll stop there.
Thank you very much, Wazir, for that overview. I keep being amazed at how many people are accessing that support. It just shows how incredibly useful it is to all our staff across the NHS. So thank you again, and thank the team for all the hard work behind this. So we're now going to hear from Reverend Dr. Guy Harrison, who will just talk to us about understanding spiritual health and well-being. And Dr. Harrison is the head of spiritual and pastoral care, consultant in staff support at Oxford Health NHS Foundation Trust. Welcome.
Thank you, Elizabeth. And good afternoon, everyone. Yes, I have 3 roles within Oxford Health, just to give a little bit of a summary of my work. I'm the lead chaplain, effectively, for Oxford Health, which is a mental health and community health trust. And as Elizabeth has said, consultant in staff support. I'm also director of the Oxford Centre for Spirituality and Wellbeing. The next slide, please. Now, this is going to show my age. Some of you will know of Leonard Cohen, others perhaps not. He was a singer-songwriter in the 1960s and 70s. But many of you will perhaps know, I think it was re-released, although it says 1992 there, I think a few years back. Ring the bell that still can ring. Forget your perfect offering. There's a crack in everything. That's where the light comes in. And I think if there's nothing else within this pandemic, we have felt very clearly in so many ways the cracks, or we've seen. It's been very traumatic for a lot of people, as we know. But I actually believe that actually, as a person of faith, but actually also as a person that actually has a sense that the light, when it shines through the cracks, can mean something. The next slide, please. This is from a psychotherapist who wrote that experiences that appear to break us, i.e. trauma, also open us up to other dimensions of experience. And he said that he reckoned that these dimensions were soulful or spiritual. Now, there are lots of definitions, of course, of what we mean by spiritual. My understanding, and from my work with patients and with staff, my understanding of spiritualism is a very wide concept. It absolutely includes people of faith, including people like myself, but it also includes people who have and are exploring understandings of questions of meaning and purpose, which come to the fore when we're faced with a crisis or when we're faced with illness or disability. And I think in the recent months, my experiences of supporting a lot of staff who find themselves in that place where they are asking those very questions, those existential questions. What's this all about? Why now? Why us? And the very difficult questions that are a consequence of the pandemic. So the next slide, please. So the World Health Organization is very clear, and more recently, that saying that spirituality is part and parcel of health and well-being, and not just an influence on it. The physical that we deeply care about in terms of our staff, more recently in terms of getting the right PPE in place for everybody, or indeed in terms of our psychological well-being, which is clearly very important. But that bit that we tend not to concern ourselves with, or perhaps we're less confident about talking about, is spirituality, the spiritual care, the faith and belief faith and belief that we all have, I suggest, and where spiritual needs come to the fore when there is that kind of crisis or profound change in our lives. And the next slide, please. Now, this is quite a definition. There are many, many definitions of spirituality. This is just one of them. It says to me something which I value, and you might want to read, you probably want to read it 3 or 4 times, so do have a look at it later. But that sense that, you know, spiritus, the breath of life, there's also a wonderful kind of understanding that we perhaps forget that spiritual care is about breathing, it's about new life, it's about being, and it comes through an awareness of something that's other than ourselves. Some of us would be looking at particular values, the values around self, often looking at nature and the beauty of creation. But whatever one considers to be the ultimate, so that could be God for many people, the divine, ultimate reality, whatever definition you want to come to. So for me, that's quite an inclusive definition. The next slide, please. So spirituality as part of health and well-being, I think has to have there are 3 aspects to it. There has to be, as that definition talks about, there's something beyond ourselves, something that we can't necessarily put into words. You know, that experience I have on my backdrop from my Microsoft Teams, which we use all the time. I have a backdrop of the Isle of Skye, and a photo I took of the north of Isle of Skye. In many ways, that's a place where I found myself to be in a place where I touch something which I you know, somewhat mysterious. I would call a sense of creation and God's creation. Others would perhaps use other words. And then it also needs to be the relational. So it's not yes, it's very personal, but it's not a self-indulgent thing. This is about being with other people. So in terms of staff well-being and seeking to respect people and to work with people, this is about relationships as well. It's about caring for ourselves, yes, caring for others, and working for an organisation that hopefully is caring for us. And then there are the personal impacts. So impacts us at a deep level, and all 3 should, I think, in my view, lead to some sort of action. Of course, it's about personal change and hopefully some sort of transformation, but it's about also caring for others, having compassion. And those of us who are also front-facing in terms of patient care, and of course, as we are changed, as we come to some understanding of ourselves and ask ourselves those difficult questions, so we're better able to support our patients. And the next slide, please. So as I think I'm kind of repeating myself in that first point, that, you know, if we are to flourish, if we are to recover well from this pandemic, it is about ourselves, looking after ourselves. There's a culture in the NHS of not paying enough attention to ourselves and our own well-being. In other words, we need to be as well holistic. It's not the physical, it's not just the physical or the psychological, it's about being cared for and understanding ourselves with compassion. And the next slide, please. And as I say, it includes the spiritual and the religious needs. It's interesting that, and you might expect me to say this because I'm a person of faith, I'm an Anglican priest working in an NHS context, and perhaps I get to see people who come to see me who are have a faith, but I also have the very fortunate role of being in a wider context in terms of my staff support work, and people see me as Guy, and they open up to me. They may or may not know whether I'm, you know, that I'm a particularly religious person, but they are articulating questions and often struggling with their own faith, and perhaps sometimes in ways that actually faith communities are not very helpful in terms of supporting. So it's quite good to be in that kind of space where I can do something of that. So it is a source of support, or can be, of inspiration and of hope, and hopefully of recovery. Though before I go to the next slide, it's probably also worth saying that actually, and reminding ourselves that spirituality for some people can actually be a source of some discomfort. So I would want to just add that little caveat. But the next slide, please. Now, there's far too much writing on this one slide, but I think it just says it in such a wonderful way. This is someone called Alison Webster, who used to work until very recently within the Diocese of Oxford, and she wrote a book. She was the social responsibility advisor for the Diocese of Oxford, the Anglican diocese, and she wrote a book called Wellbeing. I'm going to read it because I think it's worth just doing so. Just the top line is just missing from my screen, but the opposite of well-being is not illness, but dis-ease, in the sense of unease, being ill at ease with ourselves. Well-being is not the result of cure, but of the incremental building of networks of relationships and human connection, self-esteem, self-belief, purpose, meaning, value, and good relationships. These tasks must be undertaken corporately as well as individually. Health and well-being are not commodities to be bought, as they are popularly encouraged to believe they are the fruits for individuals and communities of living well. Again, you might want to read that again. For the next slide, please. Now, I'm not going to read all of this, and again, much of it will be you can look at, but Wazir was able to, I'm grateful to Wazir and John, because we have been able to work with NHS ELI and are just at the beginnings of seeking to understand psychospiritual experiences and support for Black and minority ethnic NHS staff. So we are going to be doing a piece of work over the next few months, which I hope you'll hear a little bit more about. Online supportive consultations with, we hope, a wide representative sample of staff in acute and in mental health settings in Oxford, Coventry, Worcester, Leicester and Manchester. So do look out for some of that. Next slide, please. And we will produce a number of recommendations to hopefully enhance the support for BMA staff, as we know, and as Wazir has said, who are disproportionately affected and have been by the pandemic, and hopefully come up with some recommendations for additional resources, a spirituality toolkit, final report to our funders, and we hope an academic paper. Thank you very much. That's the end of my presentation.
Thank you very much. There are lots to take in, lots to think about, really, really useful information, and really good to hear it from your perspective. I've seen lots of comments in the chat agreeing and just very grateful for the information being shared. Thanks. We'll now move on to Mark Appleby. Mark is the Director of HR at Yeovil District Hospital Trust, and Mark will share with us what they've been doing in their organization. Over to you, Mark.
Okay, thank you very much, Elizabeth. Hopefully you can hear me.
Yes.
Yes, so as you said, I'm the Director of HR at Yeovil Hospital. A bit about me, I'm married with 2 children. One of my faults is I'm very, very tidy, which drives my wife mad. I'm one of those people that she will tidy something and I'll go behind her and tidy it again. But anyway, I haven't come to talk to you about that. I come to talk about inclusion, really, and what we've done at Yeovil. Just a bit about Yeovil. We are a fairly small hospital in rural Somerset. The local population is around 1% ethnic minority. We've got 2,500 staff. And our journey really started to change in about 2018. We had high turnover, it was 23%. Our staff survey results were very average. We had a vacancy factor of 12% for nursing. And yeah, there was not great feedback in our staff survey results and exit interviews. So we decided to start right from scratch, and we changed our vision, which was basically we're going to be the very best, a little bit arrogant, to we're going to treat everyone as if they're part of our own family. And we just needed to, we recognized that we need to get things right from the very beginning. So we started off by appointing a full-time equality lead and health and wellbeing lead. We started doing a lot of overseas recruitment, and we became really good at it. We've brought over 1,700 nurses since then, mostly for other hospitals that we've supported, but also filled our own, so we have no nurse vacancies. And we worked really hard at inclusion. And I think what we did was we made a commitment to start well. So right from the time of making contact with our staff overseas, we keep in very regular contact. And when they arrive, we meet them at the airport. We put them in a house with people that they know or people they'd like to live with. We give them some choice around that. We put flowers by their bed. We put food in their fridge. We just make them feel really, really welcome, as if they are part of the family. When they arrive, myself and the director of nursing, we meet them, we give them a mentor, we give them a coach, we induct them, we help them set up bank accounts, and we sponsor the whole family. We don't just expect nurses to come over by themselves, because we wouldn't want to do that. I wouldn't want to go to another country and leave my family behind. So we sponsor the whole family, and if they need a 4-bedroom house, we give them a 4-bedroom house. We do what we can to help them. The result of that is that they stay because they feel really welcome. And our ethnicity in the hospitals changed from about 5% to 23%. And our staff survey results over the past 3 years have become one of the best in the country, where quality and diversity measure is in the upper quartile. We're best in the country for health and wellbeing. In fact, we have been for the last 2 years, with response rates of around 70%, because we engage with the staff and we make a real effort to make everybody feel welcome. And our nationality in the hospital has grown to 63 different nationalities in the hospital. So it's a really rich environment, and people just love working here. And we realised that one of the things we've got to do is change the way that we write our policies. So we tore them all up and started again. Most of our policies are 2, 3, 4 pages long. We involved somebody who had English as a second language in writing them, because nearly one in 4 of our staff have English as a second language. So we involve them in writing it. We keep them really short, really simple, cut out the jargon. And then the same goes for our organisational development plans. I once wrote a plan that was, I thought, fantastic. It was a strategy that was about 60 pages long, and I thought it was really great. And I shared it with the executive team. And the feedback I had was, Mark, this looks really good, but what are you actually going to do? And I felt really embarrassed. And I just thought, it's not great, is it? When you write a big document, people say what you're actually going to do. So I wrote a new one that just sets out where we are and what we're going to do. And that's everything that we do really in the hospital. We try to involve our staff through networks. We meet monthly with our ethnic minority network as an executive team. And everything that they tell us, we try to act on and make it a really good journey. And it seems to be working. Our staff survey is great. Our turnover is really great. We've got no nurse vacancies now. And we try to make it a great place to work where people feel they're being treated as part of their family. And I'll share with you, because I was asked to, our staff recovery plan. They'll give you a flavour of the sorts of things that we do to try and help our staff. So it's a 1-year plan. It's only a few pages long because that's our style. We try to keep things simple and written in a way that people want to read. So it's interesting. So we've circulated this. We created a plan that has 9 strands. You can read them. I won't read them all out. Hopefully you can see that on your screen. And then we just have one page on feeling valued, and we set out what we've done and what we're going to do. So we just keep it really simple. We don't just chuck out loads and loads of words that, you know, I think a lot of these complicated plans and things, nobody reads except the author. So it has to be appealing to the eye, I think, if you want people to read it. So we've done things like food hampers, where teams feel under a lot of pressure. Where staff have been isolating, we have daily phone calls with them if they want that. Not everybody wants to. If people are living by themselves, we take food round to them. Because not everyone have got family around them and they can't get out. So, and not everybody can get an easy slot with Tesco's, have food delivered. So we've delivered food to them. We've asked people to nominate people for awards or for an Easter egg. You get a cup of coffee and you get a second one free to give to somebody that you think needs a bit of a pick-me-up. Just little things like that make a difference. And if we catch people walking around the hospital who aren't being courteous, we have a little word with them and tell them that actually we want people to be friendly, is what we're about. And it seems to work. You can see it's all really quite short. We just set out what we've done and what we're going to do. So we're setting up more clubs, more networks. We've just set up a women's network. We provide quite a lot of emotional support. But you can see, I'm not saying this is marvelous. I'm sure you're doing, all this and, maybe and more extra things too. But I suppose I was just asked to share it because I suppose it resonated with a few people as being easy to read, easy to understand. Although everyone at the hospital have got jobs, a lot of people have had their income affected because they might have a partner who's lost their job, and they're just really struggling. So we've tried to help people with any financial worries that they've had. Not everyone in the hospital's got a window because it's an old building, it's an old tower block. So we're going to put in virtual windows in windowless offices so that it actually looks like you've got a window even if you haven't got one. You can put whichever scene you like just to try and make it look a bit nicer. We're on 10 floors. We encourage everybody to walk up to 10th floor every day. We have a wall chart you have to tick off to say you've done it. And then we've got all the normal things that you do with healthy apps, and we're just about to set up a menopause conference and awareness for managers that are a bit more sympathetic for staff who are going through the menopause. And then we just set up quizzes and bingos for those who are, a lot of our staff have come up from overseas. Not everyone's brought family, and a lot of our staff haven't got friends and networks and communities and, old school friends that they've got in the area. So we're just trying to do a lot of activities. The one thing we haven't done is set up a dating site because we just thought that's fraught with problems. We have been asked to, but we just thought, let's not go there. That's just asking for trouble. So we didn't set up a dating site, but we have done lots and lots of other things, including Through the Keyhole. And the last one was cultural and spiritual strand. So because we've got people from all over the world, we've even got people from Hawaii, which is amazing. Personally, I'm not quite sure why you would come here from Hawaii, because the Oval, it's not the most exciting place in the world. We haven't even got a beach, but we have. And so we encourage people to come once a day, once a year, in their traditional costume, bake traditional food. And then we can go, we haven't been able to because of COVID, but we're hoping to this year do it again and just celebrate the countries that people are coming from. And, you know, we haven't done it last year, but the year before, it was fantastic. And it was just really lovely. And people were doing local dance and things. And it was just a really wonderful couple of days. So we hope to do that again. So anyway, let me stop sharing that. If anybody wants a copy, they're really welcome to have that. All our OD plan, if you want to see how we lay that out, or our quality plan, you're really happy to. Everything that we've got, you're really welcome to borrow, steal, you know, whatever. So Elizabeth, that's just a whistle-stop tour of some of the things we've done at Yeovil. I don't know if you've got any questions for me or if anyone else has.
Mark, that is fantastic. And when you set up that dating website, just ring me. I'll apply for a job there. But thank you. Lots of comments in the chat asking for the documents. And Zoe, just to confirm, I believe these will be available on the Horizon website. We will share them with everybody who's been on the call today and more. You can ask colleagues to go on the website to get that. Really, really interesting. I am so jealous that you've got no nursing vacancies. I will be ringing you to just find out how you can help, but great session. Thank you again, Mark. Over to you, Zoe.
Thank you, Elizabeth, and all of our fantastic speakers today. Please do use the chat box and share one thing that you're going to do as a result of our time together today. There's lots that I'm going to do. I think the first thing I'm going to do is reread all of those wonderful quotes from Guy. And as Mark has kindly said, that he will share his documents with us, and we'll put them on the Horizons website tomorrow. So if you just Google Horizons NHS and go to the Caring for NHS People's page, where you've got the details for today. There'll be there'll be a link for past recordings. If you click on there, you'll be able to find the slides and the recordings of this session and lots of other sessions as well. So please do share in the chat box. What are you going to do as a result of being here today? And I can see that my colleague Lee has put the link in on the website, in the chat box. So what I'd love to do as we're closing our time now together is we've got a poll for you. So I'm going to ask my colleague Paul to set this poll up for us. And if you're in YouTube with us as well, please do answer in your chat box. To what extent has today's session been useful in your own role in supporting the health and well-being of our staff during and beyond COVID-19? And please do share in the chat box other things that you'd like to see on future sessions as well, and things that you've got from this session. So lovely. Thank you ever so much. So I'm just going to close that poll now. And we'll bring out all of the results in our next session as well. And we'll have a look at everything in the chat. So thank you, everybody. If we could just close that poll, Paul. And I've got a couple of further things just to let you know. So our next session is Wednesday, the 9th of June. They're the second Wednesday of every month. So please do pop them in your calendars. And we've also got an event tomorrow. Now we did have a limited amount of spaces to this because it was on Teams, and now so many people want to come. We've just moved the platform and we're going to invite lots and lots of people to come. So tomorrow at 1 till 2:45 we've got an event all about civility and respect. This we had a civility and respect event last month and there was lots and lots of interest. So we're going to be focusing on promoting cultures of civility and respect. This is the link, and I'll ask for the link to be put in both chat rooms of Zoom and YouTube. If you can join us, please do. There's about 350 other people who want to join this session tomorrow. So it's going to be an interactive session. If you can't join, we'll get the recordings out to you as well, both through the NHS England websites and pages and from the Horizons page as well. So you'll make sure you get all the information that you need. So without further ado, we will see you hopefully tomorrow if on this session. If not, we'll see you on the 9th of June. Please do continue to share via Twitter and LinkedIn and all the other platforms as well. Wish you, if we don't see you before, a very good month, and we'll see you again on the 9th of June. Take care, everybody. Nice to see you, Penelope, and thanks, Daniel. Steve, thank you very much. Thank you for joining us. Bev and Kay, lovely to see you. So we will see you all very shortly. Caroline, hello. Max, thank you, and hope you enjoy the rest of the school for Change Agents. Lovely to see you all. So Paul, please could you stop the live streaming for us, and we'll set up a breakout room. Would be lovely. Thank you.